Plenty of boxers retired undefeated, but no one did it like Floyd Mayweather. On August 26, 2017, Floyd Mayweather Jr. defeated Conor McGregor in his final pro fight, capping off a perfect 50 wins. Zero-loss career across 5 divisions while beating Hall of Famers, prime champions, and loudmouth rising stars. But here's the thing, there's 0 asterisks on his record. No questionable decisions like Marciano, no padded records like some of today's social media boxers. Just a spotless, precision-crafted run through the elite. This is the most wins without a loss before retirement in a professional boxing career, surpassing Rocky Marciano's long-standing record of 49 wins and 0 loss. And while 50 wins, 0 loss doesn't sound that crazy. The quality of his opposition is what makes it unrepeatable. Canelo Alvarez, Manny Pacquiao, Oscar De La Hoya, Ricky Hatton, and even Shane Mosley. He beat legends in their own prime. Today, Mayweather is also the most financially successful boxer of all time, generating over $1 billion in revenue throughout his career. His defense was a riddle nobody solved. His ring IQ was so high, it felt like he was watching the fight in slow motion. All that coupled along with his business savvy has solidified his legacy as one of the greatest and most lucrative boxers in history. Since then, boxers like Terence Crawford or Naoya Inoue may chase perfection, but the combination of 0 losses and elite competition makes Mayweather's run historically unique. And 8 years later, the number 50 is more than a count. It's a gold standard. To go 50 wins without a single loss while managing risk, politics, and staying in top form over 2 decades? It's unheard of, you don't need to like Floyd, but his perfection may be the last of its kind. 2. Longest undefeated win streak. Before Mayweather made 50 wins, 0 loss a thing, there was Julio Cesar Chavez already rewriting history. From February 5th, 1980 to January 29th, 1994, Chavez went undefeated in 87 straight professional fights. The longest undefeated win streak in the history of the sport. That's 14 years of nonstop dominance, 87 fights without a single loss, and that includes brutal 12-rounders, short-notice defenses, and dirty wars in Mexico before he even got televised. Chavez wasn't cherry-picking opponents, he was beating the best. He KO'd Edwin Rosario, broke Roger Mayweather twice, and robbed Meldrick Taylor of his unbeaten status in a fight still debated today. And he did it all while fighting 6 to 10 times a year, more fights in 12 months than most champs do in 5 years. The stamina it took, the punishment he endured, the consistency he maintained. Today, boxers barely touch 30 to 40 fights in their entire career. To go undefeated through nearly 90 fights over as long as 14 years? In today's era of safety, contracts, and medical suspensions, it's borderline impossible. But the streak was finally broken in 1994 after a controversial draw to Pernell Whitaker, followed by a loss to Frankie Randall. But by then, the myth was sealed, and even then, Chavez wasn't done. He retired with 107 wins, and 45 years later, that number still stands. That's not just any record, that's a myth wearing gloves. And with modern matchmaking and fighter protections, it probably always will. Third, youngest world champion. Imagine being a world champion before you can legally vote. That was Wilfred Benitez, the boxing prodigy from Puerto Rico who won his first world title at just 17 years and 5 months old. It was March 6, 1976, and the teenage Puerto Rican stunned the world when he defeated Antonio Cervantes, a legend with over 60 wins, to claim the WBA light welterweight title and become the youngest world champion in boxing history. And it wasn't a fluke, he was fighting grown men and beating them. Benitez would go on to fight Sugar Ray Leonard, Thomas Hearns, and Roberto Duran, all before turning 24. He had reflexes that looked inhuman. His head movement was pure art. He could stand in front of you and make you miss 10 times in a row. Benitez wasn't just a teenage champion. He was the youngest master the ring had ever seen, and no one has ever come close since. But here's why his record will never be broken. Today, sanctioning bodies and athletic commissions wouldn't even allow a 17-year-old to fight for a title. They now require minimum fight experience, age limits, and medical history checks before a title bout is even considered, and that seals this door shut. No fighter under 18 will even get sanctioned for a championship-level opponent again. Nearly 50 years later, Benitez's record is still standing, and the sport's entire system is now built to prevent it from ever happening again. 4. Most division world champion Manny Pacquiao is proof that greatness doesn't always come from staying in one lane. He's the only man in boxing history to become a world champion in 8 different weight divisions. From flyweight to junior middleweight, Pacquiao didn't just move up, he dominated in every weight class. Manny started as a skinny teenager in the Philippines, literally malnourished, and ended up fighting giants like Antonio Margarito, Marco Antonio Barrera, Eric Morales, Ricky Hatton, Miguel Cotto, Keith Thurman. Every one of them folded under his pace and power. This wasn't a resume, it was a hit list. In 2010, Manny Pacquiao climbed into the ring against Antonio Margarito, a man who outweighed him by 17 pounds on fight night. When it was over, Pacquiao had captured his 8th division world title, a record no one else has come close to. He's the only boxer in history to win legitimate world titles across 8 different weight classes. The next closest is Oscar De La Hoya with 6. Why is this record unbreakable? Because the modern boxing landscape has oversaturated titles, stricter weight cut rules, and less incentive to move up. Fighters today chase money fights or protect their legacy. Pacquiao risked it all every time, and somehow he kept winning. Since 2010, no one's added a 7th, let alone an 8th. And with more belts but fewer risks today, Pacquiao's record might be the final boss of weight jumping. 15 years later, the sport still hasn't produced another fighter crazy or skilled enough to replicate it. There may be boxers who go undefeated. There may be power punchers who win by KO. But an 8-division world champion? That's a once-in-human-history type feat. If you're enjoying this video, please hit that like button and subscribe. We've got plenty more coming your way. 5. Most knockouts are one of the most exciting parts of boxing. But Archie Moore didn't just knock people out, he made it a routine. Moore holds the all-time KO record in professional boxing history. Between 1935 and 1963, Moore racked up a mind-blowing 131 knockouts, the highest recorded in boxing history. That's not 131 fights. That's 131 men who had their lights shut off. To put that in perspective, Tyson had 44, Wilder has 43, GGG sits at 41, and even Canelo hasn't cracked 45. But Moore tripled them all. He made a career out of ending fights early. His style wasn't wild or reckless, he was a technician with thunderbolts in his gloves. He'd trap you with rhythm, bait your movement, and then end your night with a single right hand. 127 to 130, and these weren't cheap wins. He knocked out top contenders, Olympic medalists, and even challenged young Muhammad Ali. His right hand didn't age, it evolved. He fought over 200 times in his career and kept knocking people out into his mid-40s. Since he retired in 1963, no one has even sniffed that number. And in today's world, with fewer fight schedules, padded matchups, and health commissions limiting activity, no boxer will ever get the chance to even throw punches in 131 bouts, let alone win all of them by KO. 62 years and counting, Moore's KO count still looms like a mountain. Archie Moore didn't just punch hard. He built a record so violent and so absurd, it belongs in a museum. 6th, most verified professional boxing bouts. Let's put it simply, Len Wickwar fought 473 times. Let that number sink in. That's not rounds per year. That's not even total career rounds. That's actual, professional fistfights. Wickwar was a British boxer who fought from 1928 to 1947, amassing an absolutely mind-boggling 473 professional fights, sometimes multiple times in the same week. He once fought 58 times in a single year. That's more than the total of 10 modern champs combined. Most modern fighters don't even train 58 times. He boxed nearly every week, sometimes twice in a weekend, traveling by train with a bag and a mouthpiece. No modern promoter would ever allow it. No commission would approve it. And no fighter's body would survive it. His final record was 342 wins, 86 losses, 43 draws. You can't even simulate that many fights in a video game before your console crashes. He retired in 1947 at the age of 36, and 78 years later, that number hasn't been approached. So why is it unbreakable? Because boxing today is way too commercialized and regulated. Fighters are groomed for longevity, not volume. Between marketing cycles, recovery time, and sponsorship deals, there's no way to fight even 100 times, let alone 400 plus. Wickwar didn't chase greatness. He clocked in like it was a job and left behind a work log that no fighter will ever match. 7. Youngest heavyweight champion. It wasn't just the knockouts, it was the fear. Mike Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history at just 20 years old and 4 months when he annihilated Trevor Berbick on November 22, 1986. He destroyed Berbick in 2 rounds. What makes this record so iconic isn't just the age, it's the level of dominance he achieved in a division ruled by giants. He didn't win by decision, he didn't edge it out. Most heavyweight champions peak in their late 20s or early 30s, but Tyson did it before he was even legally allowed to drink. He knocked out 26 of his first 28 opponents. And it wasn't just wins, it was massacres. First-round destructions, broken jaws, corner retirements. He unified the division faster than anyone before. In today's heavyweight climate, fighters are nurtured slowly, marketed carefully, protected, managed like financial assets, and built up over years. There's no system in place for a teenager to rise through the ranks, knock out grown men, and challenge for a belt. Athletic commissions rarely approve teens for full-contact bouts at the highest level, especially in the heavyweight division. Tyson's 20-year-old championship isn't just a record, it's a monument to terror, speed, and talent we may never see again. 39 years later, Iron Mike's reign of terror remains the fastest rise to the throne in heavyweight history. So unless some 19-year-old prodigy slips through every system and fights a ranked monster by age 20, Tyson's record isn't just safe, it's a relic. 8. Most consecutive title defenses longevity in boxing is rare, but Joe Louis didn't just stay on top, he ruled with an iron fist for over a decade. From 1937 to 1949, Louis defended his heavyweight title 25 times in a row. That's not just the most in heavyweight history, it's a record across all divisions. A record that remains untouched more than 80 years later. He reigned through world wars, politics, and generational shifts. And he didn't duck anyone. He fought rematches, gave underdogs chances, and kept the division clean. He showed up, defended, and won year after year after year. His final successful defense came against Abe Simon in 1942, before he paused to serve in the military during World War II. What makes this record entirely untouchable is the modern structure of boxing. Today, belts are fractured across sanctioning bodies. Fighters avoid risky matchups. 1 defense per year is considered productive. And mandatory defenses can be evaded by stepping up in weight or vacating. No one keeps a single belt long enough to defend it 25 times, let alone consecutively. Which means no one will ever defend a single title 25 times again, especially not in the same division. Joe Louis wasn't just a champion, he was the anchor of an entire era. And his dominance may remain the longest boxing has ever known. 9th, highest unbeaten run of record set by none other but Jimmy Wilde. They called him the Mighty Atom, a flyweight from Wales who looked like a choir boy but fought like a berserker. He debuted in 1910 and didn't lose until 1915. During just 5 years, Jimmy Wilde went 104 fights without a single loss, averaging about 2 fights per month. And no, these weren't 2-minute exhibitions. We're talking brutal, bare-knuckle-like matches in small halls and working-class gyms without the luxury of modern training science or nutrition. He weighed under 112 pounds, but punched like he had bricks in his gloves. The crazy part is, many of Wilde's early fights weren't even sanctioned or officially documented, meaning this 104-fight streak may be even longer, unofficially. But let's assume the 104 number is accurate. Today, the idea of a fighter having even 100 total fights is laughable. With long medical suspensions, careful matchmaking, and careers built around marketing, not fighting, it's structurally impossible to ever reach a triple-digit win streak again. His first documented defeat came at the hands of Tansy Lee in 1915, as Wilde's corner had to throw in the towel. But by then, Wilde had already carved his name into the stone, and he later retired with a record of 132 wins, 1 draw, and only 3 losses. Modern boxers may fight 25 to 30 times in their whole career. Wilde passed 100 before most fighters today would even get a title shot. Jimmy Wilde was small, quiet, and looked like he worked in a library. But his unbeaten streak was king-size destruction, etched in an era where gloves were thin, pay was low, and toughness had no ceiling. Over 115 years and counting, that streak remains untouched. And in a world of medical suspensions, PR contracts, and brain scans, it always will. 10th world title fight in second, pro boat modern boxers build careers slowly. Record padding, tune-ups, safety first. But Vasily Lomachenko laughed at that. In just his second pro fight, Vasily Lomachenko challenged for a world title. That's unheard of. On March 1st, 2014, Vasily Lomachenko challenged Orlando Salido for the WBO featherweight title, in only his second ever professional fight. No one has ever done that, and no one ever will. But Loma wasn't just anyone. He had over 396 amateur wins, 2 Olympic golds, and arguably the greatest amateur record ever. His transition to the pros wasn't a step up, it was a step sideways. And while he narrowly lost that title shot by split decision, he won a world title in just his third fight, by defeating Gary Russell Jr., setting another record entirely. With over 396 amateur wins and 2 Olympic gold medals, Loma's pro debut was practically a world-level bout. Why is this unbreakable? Because boxing structure will never allow it again. Promoters want long careers. Sanctioning bodies want marketable champions. No sanctioning body today is likely to approve a one-win, zero-loss fighter for a championship clash, no matter how decorated their amateur background is. But Loma walked in and almost stole the crown from day one. Who else could do that? Nobody. And 11 years later, the record remains untouched. Loma didn't just enter the pros, he kicked down the door. Legends get dethroned, some records get broken, but these ones are written in stone. And now it's your turn. Which boxing record do you think will never be broken? Drop it in the comments, we're reading every one. If you want more insane boxing stories like this, hit that subscribe, punch that like button, and stay tuned.